What's up, y'all? It's your boy DJ Kdot the party. I am your host with the most, because you already know I'm quite nasty on the ones and twos because I make it do what it do. Welcome to Kdot Experience. We're gonna be having more shows like this. I have a special treat for you guys today. Uh, we're gonna be talking about politics, but not talking about politics. We're gonna keep it real. Uh, maybe even abbreviated as hooditics. I don't know. That's not the right. I don't know if that's the right word. That's not a word to tell you the truth. But Lou, thank you for being here. And if you guys are here, make sure you guys share the video. Make sure you like the video. Let's get some people in here. Um, I'm glad you're excited, Lou. Howard County Observer, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you guys for being here. It means so much for you guys to be here with me today. So, all right, let's get into it. So I have a special guest host. She is brilliant at what she does. I've learned a lot from her. Um, and you guys are gonna get to know her very, very well. We have she is not from this planet. She's been here before. Beautiful personality, just a beautiful person in general. I would like to introduce Mystery I Y, or better known as Fab, in the building. Welcome to the show, ma'am. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. How are you doing
I am
today?
doing more than amazing. Thank you for having me.
And we're gonna give you a round of applause. Thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Thank you. Why don't you tell the people where they could possibly find you, or maybe some things you want to throw out, some things, and I see that you got your brand on right there. That thing is nice right there, bling
I
blah.
see why I be the brand. So
Yeah,
you
go ahead
can
and do your
find
thing.
me on Facebook under Mystery. I see why people get that name wrong. Mysteria. It's mystery because I am a mystery. I see why. That's the brand. You see, I got that on real. And I want to thank. I call him G Dot. I thank G Dot, aka K Dot, for having me on this show. My Instagram is Trita_B, where you can see a lot of politics, a lot of conspiracy realist information. And yeah, Mystery 100 on the YouTube.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you, and that could be. We have, like I said, we also have a wonderful special guest. She decided to go and run for public office. Um, and she is a Aurora native, by the way. Aurora, Colorado native, and she wants to be for the people, and she's gonna she's allowed us to ask her some questions uh to know what her mission statement is, and what is her agenda, not necessarily for her but for the people that she will potentially serve. So I would like to welcome Miss Sarah Woodson to the show. Thank you, ma'am. And she's going to be hopefully representing District 42 with us, and which is also my district. So I'm pretty excited about that and amped up. So thank you for being on the show, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and thank you. Thank you for having me on your platform to share my hopes, my dreams, and my visions for House District 42.
All right. Yeah, all right. Would you like to shout out all your what you got going on real quick before we get started, as far as platforms where they can contact you and all those great stuff?
Yes, so you can go to my website, which is Woodson, Woodson, and that's Colorado.com. You can also find me on Facebook under Sarah Woodson for HD42. And then from there, you'll find all my Instagram, Twitter, any other socials that I have. So that's what we're doing.
Perfect. So we're gonna bring it all in real quick, and we are here in the show, the Kdot experience. All right, ma'am. So what we're gonna do, I'm going to just allow you to speak real quick on basically the generalization and what you're doing, and as far as what lit a fire under you. What was your inspiration to run for office? Do you have any experience in politics? All those particular type things. I want you to tell your story. And then once you're finished doing that, Fab will go ahead and ask her questions, and then I will follow up after her.
Okay.
Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds good. So again,
right.
thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Woodson. I'm running for House District 42. And let's see, what inspired me to run for office? It was definitely more of a calling. I've been in politics on the background for the last maybe 8 years. A lot of my work has been focused on getting African Americans and Hispanics and people that have cannabis arrest into the cannabis industry. So that's what I'm most known for. If you Google me, you'll find all type of stuff. So I've done work not only in Colorado, but also in Washington, Chicago, Minnesota, New York, Detroit. So I've done a lot of consulting work around helping people get into the industry. And I ran an organization named The Color of Cannabis, where I helped create a $4 million fund for small business owners. And then I've worked in the city of Aurora for social equity around cannabis delivery, cannabis hospitality, also in Brighton, also in North Glen, also in Thornton. So a lot of work has been done in the last 7 to 8 years. And so people have asked me to run for office before, but it's never something that I had a real desire to do. And then when I started last year, my kids all are out the house. Everybody went off to college. I have more time. And I started getting into more so the elections for Aurora City Council that were coming around. And so when I started being more involved in the local level politics, one of the things that I was doing was just doing a recap on a weekly basis or bi-weekly about our city council meetings. And I started asking around, like, where's the representative that represents House District 42? And from there, it just kind of took over. I went to DC and I heard someone say, you know, be a better ancestor than a descendant. And then this little plant, this little seed just kept on being watered. And when I look at, you know, the folks that are running for House District 42, as far as, you know, do I love it more than anyone else? Do I care more than anyone else? I will hands down say yes. I grew up in the community. I used to live in Delmar Circle apartments. I know what it is to be in an atmosphere where you don't have and you have to figure it out. And I'm the prime example of what can come out of our House district and make sure that you come back and help your own people. So I have this desire now, but it's bigger than me. It's a calling, and I feel confident that I have the experience, the skill set, and I understand how to build coalitions, raise money, get policy across the line. But at the same time, I'm a real human being. So with all those things, when I look at everyone else that's in the race, in my personal opinion, I am going to win. And that's how I feel, and I stand on that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for giving us a synopsis as far as why you're running, your background, you actually being an Aurora native because you care about, you live around these people. So, So that is refreshing to hear, that
And
and important.
let me just say this too. When it, comes to the why I'm running because we have to have leadership that shows up, that's accessible, that's accountable, that understands how to work with all people, whether if you're African American, Hispanic, white, rich, poor. And right now we don't have that. I'm running against an incumbent, and if you ask people like who is the representative for HD42, they're not going to know. And that's because this person is not in the community. And we need that because, like I told you, Kdot, right down Colfax, there's revitalization and there's gentrification happening. If we don't have someone on the state level that can work with city partners and find funding and make sure that the people that have been in the neighborhood prior to the neighborhood being economically viable, to big corporations, those people will be gone in the next 10 to 20 years. Up Colfax going east, we have all type of things that are happening. We have the Aurora Mall. So there's so many things, new developments popping up in our district all the time. And we want to make sure that the people that have been here can be properly represented and are able to have economic opportunities. So, that's just one of the reasons, but I have education things I want to get past, criminal justice. There's tons of things. But at the end of the day, we need a strong leader that's going to be able to represent, help, and work with the people in their community versus what we have now, which is like, well, I'm in office and I can essentially do what I want to do. And I don't have to, get in line to the people that have put me in here. So, that's the reason why I'm running. We need a reset in House District 42.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And we appreciate you being here. So I'm going to pass the ball to Fab, and she's going to ask you her questions as far as to pertaining to her ideology and culturally, because she definitely cares about the people.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to hear from her. And not only that, ladies first. So. And I will mute my mic.
Okay. Don't give me that ladies first. So after hearing that, Miss Wooden, Sarah Wooden, right? I want to make sure. Okay. That
Woodson.
was very impressive. Your accolades are through the roof. That lets me know that we can stand on our square and still help the community out. Um, my question to you, because you did mention that you were in the cannabis field, and is that like the main? Well, I know it's not the main trajectory, but when it comes to the cannabis field, how do you feel about the cannabis in a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one, I am extremely proud of the work that I did in that industry because essentially the cannabis industry as a whole is now ran by MSOs. So those are multi-state operators. And my job was basically helping the small person be able to enter, specifically people that have been negatively impacted by cannabis prohibition. So there's two sides to the coin, right? There's the economic opportunity that cannabis can bring into repairing and restoring communities. And then also there's the use of the plant, which some people use it medicinally and some people use it recreationally. Most recently, cannabis was descheduled. And so cannabis is no longer looked at as something as strong as like heroin or cocaine. And which is good because I feel like that brings people into the fold. But the medical properties of cannabis absolutely save lives. People that are 21 and over, they have a right to use cannabis recreationally. I think for me, it's very important that our children aren't using, that stores aren't selling to them, and that we're making sure that we inform people about cannabis usage and the positives and the negatives. So I sit on the Colorado Department of drunk driving task force where, I represent medical marijuana stores to make sure that people aren't driving intoxicated. And I know some people will say, well, people can drive high all they want, but not everybody can do that. And you don't want people on the road intoxicated driving high, the same that you don't want them driving under the influence of alcohol. I also have worked with Colorado School of Public Health to make sure that, you know, we're getting correct imaging and information out to the communities. And I specifically was representing African-American communities about children and making sure that they're not using cannabis. So as long as there's guardrails around cannabis, the same way that it's important there's guardrails around alcohol, folks have a right to use it that are of legal age. But where we've missed out is that so many people that have been negatively impacted have not been able to economically make any money off cannabis. Mind you, our state has brought in billions of dollars. And so for me, when I first started, it just was about me and my business. But once I got there, it was clear to me that in order to navigate and to see people of color in the cannabis industry, someone had to do that work. And again, that was a calling that I took on. So I'm proud of that work, because if I didn't have that work underneath my belt, I could not say that I am the most qualified to do the work, because trying to fight multi-state operators with millions and billions of dollars is no easy feat. Being a disruptor in that industry was not easy, but it definitely cut my teeth and made me prepared to fight for people that are the underdog. So I hope that answered your question. That, you know, that's how I feel about it.
Yes, okay, that did answer my question. Now, when it comes to the education part of your job, how do you feel about the Department of Public Education?
So are you talking about CDPHE or what exact department?
Just the public schools in general.
Okay, as far as if I'm running for office or cannabis?
Are you running just for cannabis, or are you running?
No, I'm running for office. Okay, so we're done talking about, okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so this is one of the things that I am focused on making a priority, is making sure that two things happen in public education. One, something called social and emotional learning. It's a concept that I learned about last year, and it's been going on for a while now. I think they have over like 20 plus years of research, but it's helping to make sure that our children are self-aware of themselves, others, culturally, and most important, that they can handle stress, pressure, bullying, depression, and all the outside influences that come with having, you know, a telephone and social media. I am 42. And so when someone bullied you when I went to school, that was it. And then you went home. But now these kids are living in a complete different world, and they have to be able to handle the stresses and the pressures of the world. So right now, schools have social emotional learning on, you know, places have certain programs, but I will tell you a basic example is like making sure kids eat when they get to school, because you can't level set and learn if you don't have food. But what I want to do is actually put this into the curriculum from K through 12, so that we can have healthy kids and we can lower some of the depression rates and the suicide rates that our children are facing, specifically in our house district, where we have a 17% poverty rate, and we have children that are non-English speakers. The majority of all our kids in Aurora Public Schools are Hispanic. So we need to make sure that we give kids tools so that they can deal with the world, because if we're not helping our children, then what are we doing? The second thing around education is we have to have children see teachers that look like them. Statistically, they do better in school. Behavior can be redirected. I was just at an NAACP thing, and it was a youth violence. Shayna Shaw was doing it along with Representative Jamie Jackson, and they were talking about gun violence. And I didn't even realize now that they are writing kids tickets to go to court and putting them early in the criminal justice system. And, you know, people talk about prison to pipeline, but I'm thinking, well, it has to be more serious than just a scuffle on the yard, because that was just back in the day, a couple of days of being suspended. But now it's no criminal justice track. So for me, it's very important to make sure that we have methods in place. And I mean like metrics and methodologies and reports reports that school systems have to provide the legislator to show that they are actually recruiting kids or teachers based on the diversity of their school. Aurora Public Schools, the majority of the teachers do identify as white, but the majority of the kids are Hispanic and BIPOC. And I think one great way to interrupt poverty is simply by example. If you have teachers that look like you and sometimes you're poor when you're young, you don't really know you're poor, but eventually you figure it out. But if you have someone that looks like you, that shows success and that actually cares and can help you go through the process, that to me is huge when it comes to our public schools. And I'll leave it like this. And I ask everyone when I go in rooms, imagine, to just whatever your race is, imagine going to school the entire time and never seeing a teacher that looks like you. That's the experience for a lot of these kids. And so that's something that is deeply personal to me and that I want to change with regards to education.
I was muted. Okay. I love that. I do want to piggyback off what you said as far as teachers that look like the majority of the kids that are enrolled. What are your thoughts on homeschooling?
Yeah. So I think that homeschooling is fine. I don't have anything against homeschooling. I know that there are parents that choose to homeschool. And, it might be the safer route. I think it's just important if you're homeschooling that the parents have all the tools that they need to make sure that they're giving their kids the right. I have some background. Is that okay? Thank you. To make sure that they're providing their kids with the same academic opportunities that a public school or a private school would. And to be quite honest, as long as you give parents the proper tools, I think that, a parent might be able to do better than having kids in a large school. So that's a parent's choice and they get to make it. But as a legislator, I would just want to make sure that we're arming and providing the parents with all the tools they need to successfully homeschool their children.
Okay. I like that. I am a navigator for homeschooling. I just feel like you said, that's the safest way in this time that we're living in now. How do you feel about the guns? Like, do you fully believe in the Second Amendment, or are you on the fence with? Because a lot of younger children have access to guns, and I'm bringing that up because there was an incident that happened at an Aurora school with guns, and nobody got hurt, thank God. So that's the blessing of the universe. But it was the way that it was planned. So when you say prison the pipeline, I solely believe in that, because I do notice this year, well, the beginning of last year's school, it was a lot of policy enforcement that I guess opened up a new trade on school campuses. So it's like they have their uniforms, which looks more like army fatigue, black shirts. It wasn't like the regular police policy enforcement, but it was more like a task force. And I do know that Aurora Central is one of them that has officers there like all day. So what do you feel about the officers being in the actual, having a precinct in the public school system? And wouldn't that be, and like you said, they're writing out tickets, wouldn't that be kind of biased when it comes to like the amendments, the Second Amendment? And no, we don't want, let me back up, we don't want our kids going to school with the guns. We don't. But in order to protect themselves, because a lot of children are going through a lot of stuff, how do you feel about the police having a office on site and more like militant, how do I want to say it? Overseeing. It's like a militant overseeing our children in school.
Yes, so this is a tough one, and I'm gonna start with what I believe is the root cause, which is poverty. And so, as a legislator, what I will be looking to do is find economic opportunity. And everything that legislators pass, it's statewide, right? But I'm looking to find economic opportunity for communities that resemble us and that have the same kind of issues as us. And then those policies can also trickle into helping other communities and districts. But the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to raise the minimum wage on a state level. And I know it's been raised within, I believe, the last 5 years, but it's still not enough, because that I think at the core issue is that folks that are working parents, which a lot of our people are working every day, they don't have the resources or access that they need to stay on top of everything that their children are doing. And so from one side of it, it's like you're going to work, you're taking care of your kids, you're doing the best you can. But these kids have so much outside influences, which is why I believe that social and emotional learning will be a game changer, to where they're picking up on what seems cool, what seems flashy. I mean, this happens through every generation and group of people, right? But when you're in neighborhoods where you have high poverty rate, poverty breeds violence. Like, that's just the bottom line. So now you have to then trickle over into the school, where now you have constant, situations happening at the school. And I don't know what the statistics are on Aurora Central, so I can't speak to say it's constant, but you're having this need for, now you have, I think they're called resource officers. When my kids were in school, I think that was the title for them, where you actually have police in school. And what that does is, again, it starts to create this system of over policing and a prison to pipeline system for kids. I personally think, from a legislator aspect, that there's nothing wrong with having some type of metal detection at schools, because parents cannot keep up on everything that kids are doing. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. So if we're constantly having children that are bringing guns into schools, we possibly then need to figure out what kind of technology can we use to detect this. Now, this is also a very one where you have to be careful, because I've seen and I've read where, they have technologies at schools that are supposed to determine guns, but there's been examples where kids that didn't have any guns, were drawn down on with guns. Because the technology read chips as a gun. So there's all these unintended consequences. And so it takes very careful policy making. But at the end of the day, kids need to feel safe in school. Police need to be present in the communities and know the children that they're policing. And when I say that, I mean knowing them because you live in the community, because you're embedded in the community. And so you're not looking at them as a threat, because then you have a complete different situation when conflict happens. And parents need to be able to make more money so people aren't living from paycheck to paycheck, and they can spend time watching and, monitoring their children a little bit more. So I don't think there's any one easy fix. Like, this is consistent work. But I do think with community ideas, community input, these are things that we can champion and change at the Capitol. There's no money to do a lot of stuff, so it'll take some time. But I will tell you right now, in government, progress is very incremental. And once you understand that, you can then, keep your shield on to get things done. So that's my take on, policing in schools.
That was a very good analogy. I appreciate your concerns on that matter. I do know that a lot of times people say, the school is an animal concentration camp, again, pipeline to prison. I am not against the schools. I'm just against, like, the policies, a lot of policies that they had in the past. So moving forward, I did like how you broke that down as far as the funding, because I do feel like, since there is no money and the funding is kind of short, when it comes to those militant, what did you call them, resource officers, there's some money coming from somewhere for them to be able to do what they're doing, right? So I feel like a ticket for any child that's, in high school, or, something happened at the school, like you said, used to get suspended, or 2, 3 days out of school, and that was that. Well, now it's they're writing tickets, which are a form of a bond, right? And that to me is moving our children into a sort of, because to me it's unfair. You're putting them in a position to where now and they're not even adults yet, right? Literally it says 21 is an adult in Colorado, but you can get a police ticket at 17 and be held in court as a juvenile, right? So it's like, how can we get rid of the whole system that they set up to give out the tickets? Why can't this go back to, okay, you're going to get suspended? Of course, unless there is guns involved, but then you still have to go back to the kids also have a Second Amendment, right? See the catch 22?
So when it comes to Second Amendment, right? There's too many guns. Now, everybody has a right to have a gun, but it doesn't mean everybody's supposed to have guns. And everybody in my household knows I feel this way, right? Just because you're 18 doesn't mean that you should go and run and buy a weapon. Because here's the thing. If I pull out a gun, I'm going to use my gun, but there's going to be a serious reason because I think that somebody's getting ready to kill me or somebody that I love. I'm not going to pull out a gun with somebody because they disrespected me verbally. I'm not going to pull out a gun on somebody because I'm road raging with them. I'm not going to pull out a gun on somebody because they slept with my boyfriend, so a lot of the reasons why our children are killing one another is so trivial. I'm not going to pull out a gun with somebody because, they took something from me, because you can't come back from that. And so you end up having killed someone. And if you are not the one that killed someone, you end up spending the rest of your life in jail. And these judges are not lenient around the way that they're sentencing children. So when it comes to looking at, and mind you, this is not my wheelhouse, but if this is really something that the community wants to really look at, we can look at why are these policies put in place? Now, see, this is the stuff that I like, right? I like policy because it has a lot of unintended consequences. So why is it that a fight turns into a ticket? And should that be the case? And what research is that based on? And what are the metrics that set this? And then when we do, and this is why when you're running policy, a lot of the times you have these studies first so that you can justify the change that you're trying to make. So then we pull all this data, we pull all this research, and we look at it. And we also have to keep in consideration, do these policies reduce acts of violence in school? Because that's the biggest thing, right? That's what they're trying to say is by doing this, by having these consequences, we can reduce acts of violence in school. Well, we need to really be able to look at that and determine, is that the case? And then from there, we can start saying, well, this needs to be changed because too many kids are ending up in court. And based on that, these kids that have ended up in court, this is the outcome. But we need to be able to actually look at the data and the research to change policies. But there's always a pathway to change things. We just have to have the data, the research, the community, and the money behind us to do it. And when it comes to money, at the state legislature, you prioritize your values. And so if this is something that we want as a community, we can get it done. It might take 3 to 5 years, but we can get it done.
Okay. I like that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to hand my questions, hand the mic over to Kdot so he can ask some of his questions.
And thank you. Your questions were wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Your answers was even more wonderful. Definitely somebody I would support, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
And she don't. And I'm gonna tell you right now, she don't just blindly support anybody.
I
That's
don't
for
support
sure.
a lot of people. I don't agree
She
with a
don't.
lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Miss Fab. I appreciate it. So yeah. So I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit. Just a little
Okay.
bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, so dealing with the because we're gonna talk about police reform
Mhm.
and education since we're already in that narrow uh, topic right now as we speak. As far as um, when it comes to you had mentioned metal detectors, right?
Mhm.
I believe there was there was a case study that was done as far as for metal detectors being more and more predominantly colored or folks of colors school, right? And where we have an issue with that is that most of the active shooting have been in predominantly white schools, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And those schools don't necessarily have metal detectors. How do you combat that situation? What is your answer for that? Because I do believe that is important, especially if objectively there've been more mass shootings at schools that don't have metal detectors
Yeah. I think all
in those
schools.
particular areas.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I think all schools need some form of or some type of technology that can detect guns in schools. And so, in my mind, no, I don't want the kids walking through school, with a huge metal detector at the front of the door. But technology now has traveled quantum leaps. And so I don't, again, this is not my wheelhouse. So I don't know everything that's available, but not only inner city schools, but all schools, because this is the thing. And this is the other thing too. Like we have to, when I look at kids and across the board on their behaviors, pop cultures, our culture specifically controls how kids act for the most part, regardless of their race. So it's not just black and brown kids that are taking guns to school. Um, White children are doing this as well, right? And when you look at mass shootings, it's more white schools, white children. And then when you look at inner city schools, it's violence amongst kids that look alike. But either way, whether if you go to Eagle Crest or if you go to which I graduated from Eagle Crest, or if you go to Aurora Central, which I was supposed to graduate from there, but my mom sent me out to Southeast Aurora. Either way, kids are bringing guns to school. And so we have to have some type of technology to be able to determine that. And I don't know what that looks like, but no, I don't want any kid to be walking through the metal detector like they're going to court. But we have to have something to determine that because kids have guns regardless of their race. It's just that I think with us and with our kids, we're using it against one another in a higher rate than when they're using it. They're just mass shooting and killing a bunch of people at one time. And I don't even know I don't know statistically what that looks like. So I can't say that what I'm saying is the truth as far as statistics. This is just what I believe based on my knowledge of gun use amongst teens and different races.
Okay, and um would this be objective or anecdotal?
What the metal detectors?
No, what you just said
But what?
from what you had, as far as the question, with as far as the research being done, would this be anecdotal or would this be
Oh no, it's just
would this or would this be objective facts that you're stating? As
no.
far as
I don't have the facts on what the rates are. No, I don't have the facts on
okay,
that. This is just what
okay,
I
all right,
believe.
that's fair. So
Yeah.
anecdotal then, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Um, which is fine. Um, So I guess another question would be kind of like wood shop or home ec or automo, which obviously or music programs, a lot of which been taken out of our schools, unfortunately. So we can uh, have a lot more people doing blue collar jobs because I think those are incredibly important, just as white collar jobs, right? And so, what would you object to having a gun education class to where that first of all our children aren't assuming what guns are for because they would literally be taught gun is a tool and a tool only and for either life-saving purposes for your own person or another person as far as protection, being educated on how to properly use a gun, when to use the guns, a list of laws to where that if you violate by misusing the gun, this could be the consequences. What do you feel about that? Maybe bringing maybe a curriculum in the school to where it doesn't teach kids to be afraid of guns, but more to be self-aware and educated better on gun safety.
Yeah, actually think that's a great idea. I also think that it's probably at this point needed. There's certain things like, do I think that they should have a gun in the classroom and teach them how to empty a clip and reload it and put it back in and all that? No, I don't I don't think that. I'm not there yet. But I do think like that kids should have education around firearm safety and the consequences of firearms, and when to and to not use it, and what this looks like. Yeah, I think that that to me at this point it's the same as important as the sex ed class. So yeah, I think that curriculum around firearm safety and the consequences of misuse of firearm, I don't see why. I mean, of course there's people that would go against it, but the way our country is and the way that we love our guns and our Second Amendment, I don't see, I don't see just looking at it why it would be damaging. I think it could be more beneficial. So no, at this point, I wouldn't be against education around firearms. Education and consequences, though, not just education, but consequences. Yeah,
Consequences, yeah, I
yeah.
agree. And the reason why I had asked that is because um I you know I am an advocate for Second Amendment for sure. Because I feel there should be more good people with guns than bad people with guns. Just like the situation that happened with it was in Colorado, but I don't know. I think it was in Boulder. I want to say. I could be wrong, but there was a good Samaritan who actually took out a person who was getting ready to shoot up the police department
Mm.
and took out that particular person. But then that person was shot by the police department that he was actually there to, who he was protecting and the people in the area. I think it happened a couple of years ago or maybe a year ago. Um, so, and that's the reason why I had brought that question up to you to where that on that particular case. So, moving on, and thank you for your answer on that. So, when it comes to school resource officers, do you believe that they should be in the school, or do you think it would just be better just to have security personnel who are possibly armed?
This is a tough one. So I remember at first, when I first heard about police being in school, I remember that I was like, what? Police should not be in the school. That is completely ridiculous. There's no reason why they should be in there. And then I kind of started to learn more about, well, what they're supposed to be doing in there and how they're supposed to be doing it and what they're not supposed to be doing. And then I remember Denver. I think Denver had removed them from the schools. And then at East High School, there was a situation where security found a young man that had a gun. They kind of had wrestled or tussled with him, and he ran off, and then he ended up committing suicide. And so I don't have an answer to that. I can't say a hard yes or a hard no, because I need to better understand, what is the benefit of them being in there, and what is it that they're trying to do? Are they more helpful or are they more hurtful? And I don't know that. I don't have any statistics or any, studies to look at.
Okay.
But what I do know is that I think community policing is very important. And if there's police officers that are rotating, so like if every single police officer has to work in the school at some point or a couple of days or something like that, I think that could be beneficial, because they need to know the community that they're policing. When you know who people are, you have more empathy and you have more sympathy for them, versus when you're always looking at a person as a criminal. So I don't know if that's how it works, or if it's just 3 police officers and this is your assignment. If that's the case, I think that it needs to be something that's rotated so that the police can actually know the future of the community and who they are, and get to know parents. So yes, I don't have a yes or no. I need to do more research, but I do think that if they are there, they all need to be there at some point, versus just having 2 or 3 police and this is all they do and this is what their job is.
And see, this proves right here, just from the questions that I'm asking, she's not political. She wants to get the data. She wants to. She's saying, I don't have that answer for you right now, but let me find out and get back to you. And so I appreciate that, because some of these politicians would have a political script and being like, oh yeah, da, 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 and just light our asses off. And I appreciate you for at least wanting to go gain the information, so you can have a better solution, right? And so, which leads into, so I'm gonna go into still on the schools aspect, but I want to lead into the dietary and then to the mental health, because I think both of those need to coincide when it comes to our children learning. So, I have a 15-year-old. He goes to Overland High School, and and the thing is, which is also in Aurora as well. So my issue is, a lot of the teachers, or maybe even staff, will probably complain about unproductive children during school, a whole 8 hours, right? But how do we mitigate to where that our children are productive by having a great dietary plan, but also having a nutritionist with a chef? And I think there needs to be a chef in the school, a chef and a nutritionist coming together, collaborating, having a great meal for our children, for it to be productive. Because if your dietary is not correct, then how are you supposed to be productive? You're going to be sleepy. You're going to be nauseated. You're going to be maybe irritable, because you get into school and they're serving pizza for breakfast. What is your thoughts on that? How can we help our children better in this area? Besides just the parents, obviously making sure that our kids have a good hearty breakfast before they leave for school.
Yes, so I do know that the wonderful Michelle Obama passed, one of her things while she was there was to make sure that kids had healthy meals in school. And again, I haven't had children in school in a while, but I do know that they're supposed to be serving things that are healthy for kids. I would have to look, like specifically with us, I'd have to look at Aurora Public Schools and what their food and nutrition menus are. But I think that there's nothing wrong with making sure that our kids are being served a good, healthy diet. The other thing is having teachers that look like you. I think there's a big difference between coming to your job that you don't like and working with kids that you don't have anything culturally in common with. And so there's really no desire to push them because teachers are underpaid. And that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
But there's no real desire to push them because when you look at them, you don't see a younger version of yourself.
Mhm.
You actually might start having implicit bias as a teacher and start seeing statistics every time you look at children that you teach that don't look like you. And that doesn't mean
Right.
the person is bad. That is what happens as humans. We have that implicit bias. And so I think, one, having teachers that look like you is a game changer because culturally the experience is the same. And then two, if we want to look at, what Aurora Public School Board's doing around dietary, we can do that. I know that they have a new Superintendent Giles. He's an African American man. The school board is very diverse. I think the school board is predominantly people of color. So these are all things that folks can get done. But again, I think the one thing that the everyday citizen doesn't understand with government is that nothing happens quickly. So you literally have to stay on top of your needs and your policy desires. And a lot of folks don't have the time, the effort, or the energy, or the money to do that. And so that's why it's important to make sure that the people that you're voting into local and state office are in aligned with your values versus using buzzwords like affordability and healthcare, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's what I need. So I think it's a great idea. I just think we need to again have more information on what's going good and what's not.
Okay. Yeah. So do you think that so in other words, we should probably look at the budget, right? At the school budget and in a whole, especially when it comes to our nutrition and everything, because I did notice that a lot of like the vending machines and stuff are not privy in the schools like when we had grew up, because there was like soda and all these type of sweeteners and candy snacks and all. I don't really see that as much in the school anymore, which is a good thing, I think. But do you believe instead of having the quote unquote lunch ladies or lunch men, uh, should we have a chef and a nutritionist in our school collaborating together uh, to have a better meal system for our children?
Yeah.
Um,
So one of the reasons why you don't see vending machines is that's all that changed with Michelle Obama and her
okay,
initiative
got it.
for healthy kids. And then what I would say is I'm gonna have to put some respect on the lunch ladies and the lunch man's names because they've been there for a very long
They
time
have.
doing what
They
they
have.
do. So if anything, we can, provide them with educational resources so that they can have another notch on their belt and become a nutritionist. And, maybe we can have them take additional classes to have that notch on their belt. But I remember going to school and some of the nicest, most loving, wonderful people were
Yeah.
the lunch lady.
I
Sometimes
agree.
your free lunch code didn't go through or something and you didn't have what you needed, and they would be like, here baby, just take it and go on, we'll figure it out,
Right.
we'll call your parent or something.
Right.
So I don't want to do anything or create any policy that would put them out of work, but I think we
Yeah.
could absolutely have some things that would provide them with more resources and more tools to become lunch lady, chef, nutritionist extraordinaire.
Okay, no, I like that, and I'm glad that you said that because I don't want no smoke with the lunch ladies. If y'all
No.
see this, I don't want, because my son still got to eat. At y'all.
Yes. We don't want no
I'm not
smoke with
that,
the
but no,
ladies.
I think you kill two birds with one stone, right? You saying that yes, there should be a nutritionist and a chef, but
Yeah.
also advancing the people who are already there, that's been there, who know the children, right? And getting them more education in this particular area, right?
Yeah,
So we're not declining their economic opportunity, but more advancement into their educational opportunity to become that. So
exactly.
I get what you. Okay, I like that answer. I appreciate that.
I like,
Oh,
she said, put some respect on that lump
yeah,
lady's
I'm
name.
putting the respect on. I don't want no issues. I don't want no smoke. Okay,
My
I
baby
just
gotta eat, so listen,
Yeah,
don't play with my son.
but but to be fair, I just don't want my kid going to school and eating unhealthy and then also getting in trouble if they're tired because of what they're eating. Do you see what I'm
Right.
saying? So
absolutely.
but yeah, so I no smoke to the lunch lady. I love y'all. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all because a couple times y'all let me get away for free from my lunch because I didn't have the money.
Exactly.
My mama didn't get that good check that week. So I appreciate that. I
Right.
do appreciate that. And I remember one of the ladies she called me baby face because I have a baby face look. Yeah, so I appreciate that. Because black don't crack. I'm just saying. I'm not like throw that out there. Uh, hello. But what I am, what I will say, since we're already in this area, so we're gonna move over to the mental health, right?
Okay.
Because mental health, I feel, is incredibly important to me, and it should be incredibly important to all of us. And I think in the black community, and I will say specifically for the black community, I think uh, we are starting to get more informed about our mental health, right? I think in the past that it was kind of like, we're used to getting through it, right? Just get through it, and not really being more responsive to our triggers and our self-awareness when it comes to our health. How would you feel? And this, I was discussing this with Miss Fab here, about maybe having maybe Monday through Thursday, obviously curriculum teachings, all this stuff to make sure our people get uh, through our classes on the educational system, but maybe Friday having a mental health awareness day every Friday to where that um they are collectively having conversations of mental health, kind of like you remember the show Teen Summit, right?
Mm-hmm.
On BET, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Talking about certain issues, talking about our feelings as young people, because I think it's more severe now because we have the internet to deal with. It's not like you said. It's not like when we were back in the day. You get bullied and you get over it. But now it's on the internet. They're putting things. The internet is forever. Cyberbullying. The people you don't even know that's bullying you. Uh, but these people are probably sitting right next to you in your class. So what do you feel about having a day specifically throughout each month, and I would say weekly, in my opinion, uh, in supporting our children's mental health?
Yeah, so that is what social and emotional learning is really the foundation of. And so for
Okay.
me, it would be more than just a day. It would be taking it further and requiring, whether if that's in high school, it's a required elective like PE,
Mm.
whether if that's, in middle school or elementary, it's required like music, or I don't know what the little kids are doing in middle school these days. But for me, it's definitely something that should be required as a part of curriculum in order to graduate, from moving from step to step to step. Mental, and then of course, my two big I have a big mental health task that I want to work on, but that will probably be my whole tenure. But we only have we have a state hospital in Pueblo, And we need one in the metro Denver area because folks cannot get out there to see family members. I can tell you, I'm sure they do the best with resources, but there's so many resources locally. And of course, it would be something that I would look to put in HD42. And I know you can't put anything in HD42. I'm so not supposed to say that out loud. But it's right in the heart of the city. And then across the street on Colfax, that's actually 36, which is Adams, but it's still on Colfax. We have some of the best hospitals across the street, the VA, and I live on Colfax, so that's why I'm pointing that way, but the VA and Children's and University. So we need to have something local that people can go to. And then the other thing is I have something that I really want to work on. It'll probably be the first thing that I will focus on doing, whether if that's through a study or just through policy, if the data exists, but care before crisis. Right now, you can see your sibling, your spouse, your child start to display mental health in real time. And unless they've completely, as the young kids say, crash out in full crisis, you can't give them any help. Like, you can't call and be like, they need to go in for 30 days. They're like, well, they haven't done anything yet. And so then what happens is when people are in this psychosis, they're committing a lot of petty crime, which is why I think one of the nice things Aurora has is now this heart court, which is like for homeless and petty crime, mental health. But they've committed all this crime, and now they have to try to rebuild when they have a criminal record behind them. And unfortunately, we don't live in a society at this point that says, well, oh, all of this was happening when you were on mental health, when your mental health wasn't solid, or when you were on drugs or alcohol. They're looking at you like you're no longer a trusted person that can work in society. And so finding a way to get people help on the onset with their families, permission versus them to be completely out is important. So mental health is important for our children, for adults. And for me, yes, I would agree to answer your question flat out. I would agree with 1 day, but I would want to take it way further and require the social emotional learning to take place as a graduation requirement for all students in the state of Colorado.
Okay. And my next question for you, would that be inherited as far as a problem solving course? Because as adults, I don't think there's some adults that know how to problem solve, in my honest opinion, um, of how to deal with conflict. What would that look like for you? I
So
mean,
that's the same thing. And I really would suggest that both of you, when you have some time, you look into this social emotional learning and all the curriculum and all that it covers. It covers self-awareness, conflict resolution, cultural awareness, dealing with your own feelings, dealing with other people's feelings. And I will tell you that, when you look at what adults do on the internet and how adults treat each other, to your point, Kdot, like, the kids are just going to pattern what they see adults doing if there's nothing to disrupt those behaviors and those patterns. And so adults don't know how to, deal with conflict properly. So we just need to make sure that we are having a healthy community of kids that are coming up in the new century. And that is regardless of color. We have to have healthy human beings because look at how our world is right now. And it's because a lot of folks are unhealthy emotionally and mentally.
Okay. And I appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. We're going to go into the First Amendment a little bit. I am a civil. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am. Did you have something?
Something you said about the education process of it. So when you say that, because Pueblo, I know a few people that went to Pueblo Hospital and they came out, right? With I guess, the hospitals being involved, would this also raises awareness with me with medication. So when you say that it needs to be like more local hospitals, would this have to do with, because far too much we see if our children are going through something or a crash out, then the first thing they want to do is put them on medication. medication, or say they need some form of Ritalin, or when it could have just been clearly a bad day or emotional trauma that has literally built up, right? And then the first thing that the hospital wants to do is put them on some sort of psych meds. So, how do you feel about the medication part of it when it comes to, just say we have a group of children, and I'm not putting color on it because this is all about the children, and it has nothing to do with color, right? So, through the emotional trauma that they're already witnessing, the internet is literally raising the children. They're seeing so much, you know, trauma that is posed as being cool, or keeping up with the Joneses, or staying in the loop. But then when our children emotionally crash out, the first thing is offered is a medication. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people take medication, and I'm not against medication at all. I think that there's people that need medication to be able to regulate, and I think it's really important. Like when we start, see, this is the conversation. I love that you brought that up because this is a conversation that we haven't had, to me, in our specific community. I think what we've done is we've said, okay, yes, we believe that mental health is real. However, how do you then stabilize, or how do you manage? And I think medication in our community is still taboo. Now, do I think that young people should be on psych medication for minor offenses? Absolutely not. I also think this is where, you have to have trust with your doctor and your child, and you have to make sure that you as a parent are doing your best to advocate for your child so that you have all the right options and you have the resources. But when we're in communities where resources are limited, we have to be open to looking at all options. And medication, you'd be surprised, there's people that have been diagnosed with things like bipolar or schizophrenia, which is a more on the spec on the pole of things that would be a more severe psychosis. But you have people that are diagnosed with different things and they live normal lives and you would never know because they take medication. So I think that we need to have better conversation around medication and how that can stabilize a person. I heard someone say, anxiety is just worry. There are people that worry all the time. Do they need to be on medication? Maybe not necessarily. But if your worrying is completely consuming and taking over your life and you can't have, functional relationships, then maybe medication is the way to go. So I hope that answered your question. Do I think children just should be prescribed medication? Absolutely not. But am I against medication and how it can really regulate and help people? Absolutely not. Because if you have diabetes, you take medication. If you have, headaches, you take medication. If you have any kind of ailment, you take medication. And so if we're going to acknowledge that mental health is real, then we have to also acknowledge that medication can be a pathway to solving that. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, I said that was a fair answer.
Okay. Okay, Kdot, you're on mute now too. I can't hear you.
There you go. We're gonna go into we're gonna go into the First Amendment aspect because I am a journalist, as a community journalist, and I report issues and disseminate those issues to the public, especially when I'm called. KDOT, you need to be in this area. This is going down. I in ways we are respected, but in ways we're kind of not. And the reason why I say that is because when the chief of police, the little short guy, Um, sorry, I'm gonna behave. I'm gonna behave. I'm gonna behave. Lord, take the wheel. Uh, has his little press conferences. All I see is corporate news media there. And what is your take on having citizen journalists there who are should be who should be taken just as seriously as the corporate news media in those particular rooms? Because all I see is ABC, CBS, uh, Fox News, all those particular news, uh, corporate news media in those seats, and we don't see enough of uh, people who represent us. And I'm not even talking about race. I'm talking about as us in the community who do just as good reporting, or if not better reporting, than the corporate news media. What do you feel about that? How do we make that happen? Is there any policy on that to make sure it's no type of discriminatory?
That's a great question. And I don't know what we have on a state level regarding news coverage and news media, but I do know that the news media in general is biased. And it, whatever side you sit on, then that's what it's going to be biased to. You know, for me, I always try to watch a little BBC and NPR, and I try to mix it up because I watch Fox, and not because I agree with anything they're saying, but it's
Right.
just like, gosh, this is crazy. And then you go over to CNN and it's like, gosh, this is crazy too. And so I think that it's important to have independent journalism. And, you know, specifically around what you do, I always like to say, you know, especially in our community, we want Black folks to show up this certain kind of way, but that's
Mhm.
not how it works. And in order to get progress, we all have to be frontline in our own way. What you're doing is courageous and it's frontline. What I'm doing is courageous and it's frontline, but it's at the Capitol. What
Right.
people are doing at the city council building is courageous and frontline, but that's where it's at. And so in order to really make progress, and believe it or not, we have come a very far way, because I don't know about y'all, but I couldn't imagine living in a time where people called me racial epithets
Mm,
all the
mm,
time. And I
mm.
had to sit on the back of the bus, and I couldn't get an education, and I couldn't swim in a pool, and I couldn't sit at a counter. Like, you know, and so I think because we don't live in that time, so many of our people don't feel like there's a struggle. And so we have people like us that know that the struggle still exists, and we're trying to be better ancestors and descendants. But we have to have independent news media. We have to have independent journalism. And what's so nice about the internet, it causes a lot of havoc. But what's nice is that your voice can be heard. And what you're doing is not easy. You have to be consistent, and regardless of how the money's looking, you got to show up and you
Right.
have to love it.
Right.
And so these type of platforms are important, so that people can have a different perspective, and sometimes a more neutral perspective, and also like a more real life perspective. Because I feel like almost when people have these credentials and these titles, and you know, they're highly educated, they start operating in a sense that, you know, they're not connecting with real people. Educational classism, title classism. And it's like, yeah, you can have all of that, but you still need to be able to connect with people. So to answer your question, yes, that is extremely important, and I'm in full support of that. You know, that's one of the reasons why I even reached out to you, because I consider you to be a valuable voice in our community
Now,
through your
and now,
journalism.
and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate that because it's because me and Miss Fab do that. We do have lives, and we discuss certain situations, but I just feel like we're not in those rooms. How, if you are elected to this position, um, will you possibly be committed to the work to make sure citizen journalists like us get in those particular rooms?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna be invited. So here's the thing, right? I plan on number one, and this is my commitment to constituents. My first 2 years, I want to cut my teeth by running citizen led initiatives. So, like
Okay,
all the bills that I want to
perfect.
run, and mind you, though, folks are going to have to show up and talk, and we're going to have to work through and say, okay, this is possible, but this might need a study, or this is not possible. But my first 2 years, I really want to focus on bills that community wants to run. So, these are called like
Yeah.
constituent led bills. So
Okay.
because of that, I will have my kitchen cabinet, and I will have my people that will be in rotation, because people gonna want to get in there. But I'm gonna be inviting folks to not only the glamorous things, but to come down and testify, to bill signings, to all of that. So my commitment to community is, if you bestow your vote and your trust in me, I will spend my time there working for you. And if in 2 years, they think I'm too disruptive and they don't like me, and for some reason y'all will know, like, no, we're going to have her back, because she makes sure that she focuses on our needs and our desires. And so that is how I
Absolutely.
plan, that's how I plan to work, being a lawmaker, running policy. I don't
Okay.
plan to do too much of being a politician.
Got it. Okay. Makes
Yeah.
sense. And I thank you for that. And I appreciate you fighting for the little guys because um I'm gonna tell you right now, a lot of these corporate news media, they'll be like, well, how did you get to the scene so fast? Or how did you know about this? Or I would give them information because I'm not biased like that. I respect what they do in a way. Um I just don't respect the scripted stuff. I respect the journalist who's literally there to get the information to disseminate it to the public, not because they got there first, because it's right information, and
Mm-hmm.
the public deserve to have right information, not the fastest to get it. So with that being said, of getting information, in Aurora currently, I had asked for information on a particular officer as far as their disciplinary record, uh, and it cost me $302 in
Mm-hmm.
Aurora. How do we? This is free information. How do we stop this? Because here's the thing: what if a homeless person or a person that doesn't have that much money, uh something they were violated or by a police officer, and they want to know the history of the background, maybe to do a lawsuit or whatever, or to again disseminate information to the public, or to and they can't afford to pay it. That's not fair to that person who's maybe not economically advanced to get that, to pay $302 on one officer to get that information. How do we go about eliminating that? And are you for the cause in eliminating that to make sure
This
that we have that information for the public?
So this is a great question, and I actually know a little bit about this. So for your audience, so we have
Okay.
CORA, is Colorado Open Records Act, and
Mm-hmm.
you can submit these CORA requests, and they're charging you for the time that it's spent, is what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, outside of criminal justice, I've heard people actually complain about CORA requests and the cost a lot, and
Okay.
that if you don't have money, you can't really get access to it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm more than willing to look at waivers around the fees for CORA based
Okay.
on your income. Yes. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we shouldn't live in a world where if you don't have money, you don't have access. We shouldn't live in America where if you don't have money, you don't have access. Right. And so, while it's the right thing to do, just know that people are going to push back and folks are going to be upset about it. But I mean, I think for me, that's something that other lawmakers can get behind. People
Okay.
should not, so yes, I could get behind that, having some
Okay.
kind of waiver in place based on your income for CORA. But now, folks will say, well, now we have to look at the income and we have to make sure that they don't have enough money, so those are one of those things. But I think
Uh,
anything's possible. And I do feel like there needs to be maybe caps. I don't know, but we could
yeah.
look at it and see. Yeah.
Well, Howard County Observer agrees with that. He had the peace line. Like, yes, I agree with that. So, and he's also uh, in journalism, citizen journalism as well. So, um, all right. Now that we're getting to that because we got about 10 minutes.
Okay, all right.
About can't be on here forever. We got
Okay, I wasn't sure. Where was we wrapping up? But no, I'm enjoying it, so I'm good.
I think this is a good conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I'm turning up the heat, a little bit on you.
Okay.
So, and I just want to see your critical thinking. You know what I'm saying? Seeing how everything. So, when it comes to there have been some systems put in place uh, in I believe in Philadelphia and also Minneapolis, where when it comes to traffic stops, they don't do traffic stop unless there is an actual uh, speeding or not, not doing traffic stops for minor offenses like expired tags, uh, uh, not properly registering or whatever, all those particular type things where there's not necessarily a victim involved. Um, do you agree with that? And um, to where it doesn't create any more fishing expeditions as far as okay, well, I smell weed and I do, where a little traffic, what is that, the license plate lights, it's out, so it gives them excuse to keep digging and digging for these unnecessary wannabe crimes, I guess, in that particular situation. So, do you agree with not having these, or do you think that these revenue collectors, I'm going to say, are necessary?
That's a really good question. So I do not agree with racial profiling, but I
Okay.
do agree with having traffic police. And if you live in Aurora, which you live in Aurora, we live in Aurora, like the speeding is out of control. Our district has probably the most, and just for me watching the news, again, this is not, I don't have the data, but the most like pedestrian hit and runs. Also, I think there is a huge situation around folks that don't even have driver's license driving and not knowing the rules to the road. So I think that anytime it comes to policing, you have to really find a balance around public safety, which is the policing portion, and then making sure you're not racially profiling people. So for
Okay.
instance, the policy that Stephanie Hancock ran, I am against that, because if you don't have registration or license or insurance, which they say it has to be all three, right? If you don't have all
Right.
three, now your car's
Yeah.
towed. There's a
Yeah.
strong situation that you didn't have all three because you don't have the money to have all three, and then you lose your vehicle, and now you're further in poverty. And so I think like it's very difficult to have like one size fit all policing, but I
Hmm.
do know that racial profiling is based on policies like this. So, oh, we see black men in the car and there's a taillight out. Well, we're going to stop them because the profiling data says that somebody might have a warrant or somebody might have a gun, or you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
so there's those type of issues. But I am not in favor of not having traffic police. I think we have to have traffic police to keep
Okay.
our city
Well,
safe.
and I agree with you. I think that it's necessary especially if you were speeding and you caused an accident which created a victim, right?
Right.
I absolutely, not okay with that. That would be a crime because there is a victim. Um, or just speeding in general. I don't think people should be speeding unnecessarily. I'm totally for people being stopped on that particular part. But where my issue is the driving. People don't know the difference between driving and traveling,
Right.
and so the and there's been several Supreme Court case laws and even Congress, and I believe in, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Fab, I want to say in 2018, stated that you do not need a registration, you do not need insurance, and and you do not need a license because driving is a privilege. We agree, but driving is simply being a bus driver, a taxi driver, or Uber driver, anything that operates in the center of commerce for goods and services. But it is a right for you to travel on public highways and roadways if you own your own automobile and you are traveling in a safe uh, distance, a safe speed, and those to where that you're not creating victims in those situations. So how are we still being? We're still travelers are still being victimized for revenue collection when it's already been uh, Congress has already stated that you don't need a registration to travel. You don't need a register. You don't need insurance. And I have insurance for safety reasons. You know, I think that's the responsible thing, just in case something were to happen. It's kind of not if it happens, is when it happens type of situation. But how do we stop people from getting victimized on that?
I don't think that's something that you can stop. We talked about this.
Mhm.
I don't think that's something that
Mhm.
you can stop. Because here's the thing, like, do you want someone traveling that doesn't have any proof that they've ever been taught or that they're capable to drive a motor vehicle? Because that's what your driver's license is about. And I'm
Can-
just posing the questions.
no,
That's
can
what
I answer that question?
yes.
I can answer that question for you.
Okay.
If uh, I will say there's calculated risk to everything. There's a risk when you walk outside your door, right?
Right.
Does it mean that because traveling also consists in walking too?
True.
So should that person have a license for walking?
No, they
That's none of
shouldn't.
my that's right. So it's none of my business. You know what I'm saying? People should be
Yeah.
allowed to be private for a reason,
Yes.
unless there again there's a victim or some type of violation that they caused to where that it could have possibly ended up for someone to be a victim. So if there's speed, I'm not for speeding. I'm not for, but what I am is for. I don't mind a police officer doing their job, but I don't want people's rights to be violated in the course of doing their investigation, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It
So,
does. And my concern is just more so racial profiling. But
right.
I will tell you, I want people on the road that have done some driver education and that, actually have a driver's license. I want people on the road that, at some point had some insurance. And gosh, please don't run into me and you don't have any. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, so I feel like, and that's why, for our neighborhood, I really want to focus on finding more economic opportunity because a lot of these things have to do with money.
Hmm.
If when you got money, you can keep your insurance consistent. You can go get
Right.
your smog test. Your car's not breaking down. And so I'm a real person. I've had money and I have not had money. And so I know when you have money, you have a lower likelihood of running into the criminal justice system. When you don't
Okay.
have money, you have a higher likelihood of running into that because you could be having your insurance for months and then the one time where your check is short or something and you can't pay your insurance, now you don't have insurance, now you get pulled over, now you have a ticket, now you're further in. So it's just one of
Right.
those things where I think having economic development solves a lot of this stuff. But I also think we need to have good public safety as well.
So I have 2 minutes with you.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
have with my last question,
Okay.
and I'm going to say a quote, and I want to know if you know who said it.
Oh, shoot. Now this is the hot seat. Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So the quote, and Miss Fab might actually know this one actually.
Okay.
So the question is, who said this quote? I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And who is the name? Who first of all, who's the name of this person who quoted this? And what department was he in charge of creating?
Well, gosh, I don't want to guess, but I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So I will tell you.
Okay.
The answer is John D. Rockefeller.
Oh,
Are you
Rockefeller.
familiar?
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Rockefellers?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
um, and the department that they created was the Department of Education.
Okay.
So the reason why I asked you this particular question is how do we change that narrative? Because he's the person who created the public school education or just the education system in its entirety. Um, with this jacked up quote that he said. Um, and how do we change that narrative?
Yeah, that is so good. Okay, this is my last comment,
I
huh?
told you I was turning up the heat.
That this is a good one. So first and foremost, because I am a small business owner, I always tell people consider entrepreneurship. But it's
Mm,
not easy. You have to have a gut for taking high financial risk with no return. And you really have to love what you're doing because you work more for yourself than you do for others until you get to the point where you just manage others that work for you. And then every level, there's a new challenge. But I think that for me, the best thing I ever did was become self-employed, be an entrepreneur, run businesses, work for myself. So that is a big thing for me. The second thing is formal education. There was a time when Black folks did not have an opportunity to get that. And so that was the biggest thing. And so
mhm.
many, specifically Black women, have been able to tap into that. And we're doing extremely well. And you have, Make America Racist Again president. And so it was very important for him because I'm telling you, once you take economic opportunities from people,
Mhm.
they have it, they cannot succeed because you need money to do everything. And
Okay.
so pulling 300,000 Black women's jobs from them, that's going to put a dent in what we can do for our families and our children. And so college is important. And I still think that that's a route and a path that people can take if they choose. But the most important thing, if we circle back around to entrepreneurship, is having a trade. Engineers, mechanics, carpenters, construction workers.
Yeah,
Those people make tons of money, especially if you can tap
they
into
do.
like government sectors and government contracts. So having a trade, HVAC, they make a lot of money. Like having a trade is to me just as equivalent as having a formal four-year education. And with
Okay.
either of those things, you can then work for yourself, which I would always say is the way to go. But I understand that that's not for everybody. But I think it's the best thing a person can do for themselves.
Okay. So how do we change that narrative of what John D. Rockefeller said? How do as far as the Department of Education? How do we change that narrative?
Well, that's what I'm saying is,
So you're saying implement that in the
yeah.
school? Okay,
Yeah,
I see.
we need to start talking about other opportunities. And again, I'm not on the bandwagon either because now there's a group of our people that are like, well, college isn't the only opportunity, and stop telling kids that they shouldn't go to college. No, 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 I don't agree with that either. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that college, yes, but they're moving the goalposts now because everything that they told you that you could have and then you went and did it, now they're moving the goalposts and they're taking it from you. So
Got it.
college, yes, it's very important. You should do it if that's your pathway. But there's
Okay.
another pathway, and that's a trade. And to me, both of those pathways
I
can
see.
lead to being a business owner. I think that's the best thing a person can do for themselves.
Okay, Miss Fab, you had something?
Yeah, I was just because I was going to touch on the topic of education, what the school system is actually teaching the children, and if you were in agreement with that on
Um,
all levels, because you do know that in 2020, and that's when I took my children out of the animal concentration camp.
yeah,
They kind of moved social studies for the LBGTQ They moved it. If you guys didn't notice it, and I talked to the East superintendent for about 2.5 hours, and he's like, "Well, how did you know this?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm watching it. I'm watching the LBGTQ. I don't know what to call it, but agenda. That's what it was going to do, and it has taken full flight." So when it comes to the education part of it, do you agree totally? Because not one time have I talked to a student that knows how to set up a trust, that knows what an irrevocable trust is, that even knows their Bill of Rights, that even knows that each state has a charter, that knows what the organic constitution is. So to me, the public education system is not only feeding our children garbage, they're not even teaching them the proper anything to even say that they need to go to college. Because to me, sending them to college after passing them with this indoctrination, sending them to college is putting them in debt. Because a lot
Mm,
of the people that go to college, they don't even get out of college and go to the job in which they studied for. And then we
Yeah.
have some people that went and got
right,
these bachelor degrees and this, that, and the third, and they're just as batty outside of the bachelor's degree, but giving advice to people in which they need the advice that they're giving,
right.
if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And that the thing is, and I wish that people would realize, like, the best way to tackle problems is by having a middle ground, right? Everybody that I know that has a six-figure job has one thing for sure, some type of education, whether if that's traditional 4 years or if that's trade school. And then anybody I know that makes over $500,000 a year, they work for themselves.
Mhm.
So
Right.
what I'm saying is that we have to we when it comes to our curriculum in school, United States is not high amongst like math, science, tech. Like we're falling behind in education, so we do need
Okay.
to look at what we're doing. But my goal and where I would push people to is, we live in a capitalistic society, so
Okay.
capitalism and business are two, and they go together. And
Right.
so if you really want to try to have economic development, get your education, whether if that's traditional or if that's trade, and then see if you can find the passion, the grit, and the courage to work for yourself. That's always going to be my recommendation.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being on the show. I know it was hot. I turned up the heat a little bit, just a
It was,
little bit, just a little bit.
yeah.
Because I definitely, like I said, I know that you're not a politician. You are just a great person that happens to work around politics, and you have to still be in those same rooms, and your voice absolutely needs to be heard because you'll be representing the people here soon, and I'm speaking that into existence. So,
Thank you.
so I appreciate you being on the show. Um, this conversation was definitely needed to be had. Um, Stick around just for 1 sec
Okay.
once we end it, and then
Okay.
so I'm gonna close out, and I'm gonna have you do your final thoughts uh, on the particular show, and and then we'll have Miss Fab do her final thoughts and my final thoughts, and then we'll end the show. So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and start with you, man. What are your final thoughts, and let them know where they can find you.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ms. Fab. Thank you, Kdot, for having me on your platform. And thank you to all the listeners. I am running for House District 42. And if you're not sure if you live in the House District, if your zip code is 811, 810, 812, or 817, You're most likely in my House district, specifically 810, 811, and 812, some of 817. And I have caucus and assembly coming up. That's how you guys can get me on the ballot. And so I need your help with that. It's not a huge commitment. We'll get together, we'll have fun, and you'll vote me on the ballot. So please consider helping me with caucus and assembly. If you live in any of those zip codes, you can reach me at Woodson, WOODSON 4FOR, Colorado.com, and just sign up. There'll be a link on the website saying I'm interested in caucusing for Sarah Woodson to help get her on the ballot. But I just appreciate your time. I want to make sure I earn your vote, and over time, I will earn your trust as your state legislator, because I will be down at the Capitol negotiating on your behalf, fighting on your behalf, standing up on your behalf. And I look forward to what's possible in our House district with new leadership that's accessible, accountable, reliable, and works for the people that put them in office. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And we will send that to me so I can put that in the description for the show so people can do a simple click and have your information. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for being on the show. My co-host, 30 seconds.
Hey,
You got 30 seconds.
okay.
What is your final thoughts of the show and how to go and where people can find you?
Miss Woodson, I love your delivery. I love the expertise that you have in the field that you're in. So I definitely will look more into you. I'm interested in giving you my vote. I would like you to implicate the right to travel anywhere in that legislature, not political. Somehow, some way. I feel like that whole driver's license, insurance, and registration is a cash cow. Not to mention a private organization. So if you could take a look into that a little bit deeper. But I do appreciate you just being here, showing up today. You was on time. I was on time, so that's a good look. And I appreciate you standing up for the people. That's first. And I also want to give a big shout out for just this whole what was this, an hour and a half? We talked about the children because the children are the future.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate for the children. So I appreciate all of your feedback. And yes, you're worthy of a vote, sweetheart. So I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate and thank you for being my co-host today
Thank
and such a
you.
wonderful co-host and great questions by the way. Also, you guys see the link right there if you guys want to support the Cash App if you want. It is $ DJ K dot 123. If y'all want to keep this moving and keep it grooving and moving and going because those core requests and CCJR requests aren't cheap. And
Right.
and to provide information, accurate, objective information to you guys, I have to pay for those out of pocket. So, and so, but you guys deserve that. So we can, when I do stories and you need updates, I can properly provide those updates for you as a journalist. So, more cop watches coming. Just letting y'all know. We ain't done yet. We ain't done yet. And Chief of Police, if you see this video, I haven't got my email response back yet, and I need that expeditiously. Okay. And I'm not playing. So, so you guys
Yes.
can find me pretty much on all platforms. Instagram. I just discontinue. I think I'm going to discontinue TikTok because they want more information. I don't like people all up in my business like that. So I think I might discontinue TikTok, but Instagram, Facebook, Jerome Dutch. You can find me there. YouTube. Also, if you have any stories or any rights violations that happen to you, please email me at k.copwatch at gmail.com. And that's k.copwatch at gmail.com. I appreciate both my guests for the day, and I appreciate the conversation because it needed to be had. So,
It
on
did.
that note, it's your
Book
boy
them
DJ
detox.
Kdot. It's your boy DJ Kdot the party, Miss Sarah Woodson, and my lovely special guest host, uh Miss Fab. I appreciate you being on the show.
I appreciate you guys. Book your detoxes through my mystery ICY inbox because
That's
my
right.
hair page is I'm having problems with Facebook. Y'all know how Facebook feel about me. So if you
Yeah.
want them detoxes, hit me up in the inbox. And I am doing mobile services, so and you need to be in my
Clothing
parade.
line. You
I
gotta
think I
support the
want to
clothing line.
gift Miss Woodson one of my cute little outfits, just for showing up. I'm a cheerful giver, so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see you in some of this ICY, Miss Woodson.
Hey.
And y'all go follow her again. We need this in our community. We need like-minded people. We need more of us, like she said, more of the teachers. So if we can all come together somehow, some way, and make this happen.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you being on the show. And it's your boy DJ K Dot the party. And I love each and every one of y'all. And I'm out. One.
Peace.